drenched with our blood. Because you see, so many of our ancestors was killed because we have never accepted slavery. We had to live on it, but we've never wanted it. So we know that this flag is drenched with our blood. So what the young people are saying now, give us a chance to be young men, respected as a man, as we know this country was built on the black backs of black people across this country. And if we don't have it, you ain't gonna have it either, because we gonna tear it up. That's what they saying. And people ought to understand that. I don't see why they don't understand that. They know what they've done to us. All across this country, they know what they've done to us.
See you.
Cut.
What's going on? What's going on?
That looks
Hey.
good.
Yeah, your fresh cut looks great.
Hey, thanks.
Wow. Starting to look like your dad.
All right. Okay.
Man, that is so. Look, can you just tilt the camera because the glare
What, on my glare?
off the head
Okay, that's funny. That's cute.
is catching me.
Okay. Is it really?
No, you're good. You look like an angel. It's angelic. The clouds parted.
A little bit, all right? Sun's out, all right?
Hey,
What's going
so
on? Good
how
morning.
are you? Look at
What?
so
I'm good. How are you?
good. You're awake?
I'm alive. I showered.
What?
Wow.
I woke up early enough to actually shower. Can we talk about that?
No, this is out of 4 podcasts,
Second.
I
This
think-
is the second time I showered before.
the second time that you're up on time.
Yes. No, first time I'm up and ready on time. Second time I've showered. We're good. We're doing great.
There's nothing like a Saturday morning shower.
Oh, let me tell you. It's usually like a Saturday afternoon, evening when I wake up, shower. It's a good time.
LH, I see what you're talking about. I see.
What's up? What's up? What do you think? What am I to do? What am I to do?
Go bald. Go bald.
No, that you see how
Gotta go bald.
what he's talking about. So well, you made the first the second comment. You and your sister. Dad, I thought your line was going to be straight, but it's oval, and it's bringing it way back.
Oh, man, that is...
I mean, that razor traveled. I mean, it went on.
It's a clean cut.
Well,
It's clean.
listen.
It's just round.
Yeah, it's kind of a thing. I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot.
I don't even want to go there with you.
I appreciate
Right now, it's a rough transition for us all.
No.
Coming back into the new world, and I haven't had a haircut since like March.
Right.
So like,
No.
even the experience itself was just very different. It
Oh
just
my
felt
God.
different.
No, the guy took. It was like mowing down a hayfield. Like it took. I think he got in because it was so. It just. He said he had to come out the same way he went in, and then like change the number, the guard, because it was just he couldn't go low. He had to go. He said we'll go 1 and 3 instead of 1 and 2.
Wow, he gave you odd numbers.
Yeah, he went 1 and 3. Anyway,
That's just.
why don't you
just
kick
can't
this
go
thing
there.
off here, Liam? Why don't you introduce the cast?
Episode 5, Potting with Perspective. So I came into this morning, given all the, tragic news this week,
Absolutely.
the following weeks, following years. I mean, you can go on and on, right? But I don't know. I don't have anything positive to say. I'll start with that, right? I'm not going to even sugarcoat anything. I'm not going to say like, hey, let's be peaceful.
Right.
I don't really, that's not my vibe right now. My vibe is not of a violent one or an angry one. Let me rephrase that. Definitely there's some anger there, let's not, there's anger there, but I don't got much, man. I don't got much. We just witnessed a complete murder on on the news, man. Just absolute murder, execution.
So there's so much. There's so many things, and so let me start by saying this. There are certain stories that kind of don't make the sexy mainstream media. For example, Officer Chauvin. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. Chauvin.
Who cares?
Doesn't matter.
He had worked at this.
Officer racist. Officer murderer.
He had worked at this club called El Nuevo Rodeo for 17 years, making a side hustle, $55 a night. Guess who also worked there with him for over a year?
Yeah, I heard this. Yeah.
Mr. Floyd, right?
Yeah.
So they knew each other. So so not only, so listen to this. So the call goes out. This guy is suspected of some fraudulence, maybe some counterfeit money. He's across the street in his vehicle, as I understand it. The police pull him out. It's not like he's coming at them. The police pull him out, and he knows them. And he still leaves his knee on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And Floyd was unresponsive for 2 minutes and 53 seconds before he removed his knee. And his hand was in his pocket.
Well, mind you, the other two officers who were on his legs, the other officer who was watching and also trying to prevent bystanders and onlookers, as they're saying to him, hey, he's saying he can't breathe, so this was, this was like a public viewing for real, man.
At this club, he, they said he often just stayed in his car unless things got out of control. They had usually over 50 officers there on any given night. But he would be in his car, but they said that his whole disposition would change. These are the eyewitnesses, the people that worked with him. They said his disposition would change on urban nights, Twerk Tuesdays, any type of festivals. His whole disposition would change. He was known to lash out, and so now those are statements made in the aftermath, so I don't know what's true and what's not, but regardless, he definitely had a history. We already know his policing record was not stellar, was not great. He had these type of run-ins before. And as you said, it was
the city of Minnesota's had this type of run-in.
Execution.
Mr. Castro, who was shot 7 times in the passenger seat several years ago with a 4-year-old in the back seat and his fiance or girlfriend in the driver's seat, shot 7 times, only stating, hey, I have a weapon. And the officers then took that as if he was reaching for the weapon and they shot him 7 times. So, this is so what's your take, man? Like I said, I don't really I don't want to sit on here and spew violence either, so I don't really have much positive on this here.
There's nothing positive, nothing at all. And the fact that, so I guess he was arrested yesterday, the day before. Okay. Third degree murder. Okay. I Googled it earlier, and a few things were like, oh, there's no such thing as third-degree murder. I mean, there is.
In about
that's
5
like, I pushed someone
days.
and they hit their head on a rock and they die. But it was completely like I shoved them but then they happen to hit their head, or like vehicular manslaughter. You know, you're in a car accident and someone in the other vehicle. This was not that.
No, non-violent felony. That's how they say it's a non-violent felony.
Right. No, this was at least second-degree murder. You know, it's not premeditated or, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know their history at the club, but who is there to say, like, I don't know. That's just very fishy to me. I just don't think it's not correct at all. And the fact that it took them, again, this long.
Actually, this was really short for an officer.
Well, yeah, but it's still.
This was actually pretty short, but he should have been arrested day of. I mean,
they're arresting CNN reporters.
Yeah.
Right? I just watched that video. Mm-hmm. Not like the whole time, like you're getting the whole entire dialogue. Okay, officer, what am I doing wrong? Hey, we will move like to where you want us to go, being completely compliant. And the officers are just saying you're under arrest. Okay, what are we under arrest for? There's no answer. Did they come out with an answer? Like, did they ever respond to why they?
Well, let me ask you, what response could even be said, right? Other than
coronavirus.
We're sorry. We're sorry. I did see one government official in I think it was Mississippi. Go figure. But he said, well, if you're saying you can't breathe, then you can breathe. Wow. Wow. So let's take into account a couple of things. This man is now, his circulation is being cut off from his legs, his arms.
Face down.
He's on his stomach.
Chin up. There goes your...
His chin is up. So you're cutting off his airways, right? Second, it was reported that he had already, physical conditions that made things a lot complicated. But, you can be in the best physical condition. You cut off someone's airway, that's just what it is.
Right.
There's no, there's no secondary in that. And I've heard that statement before. I've heard that statement in trainings. I've heard that statement a lot.
Yeah.
But it is the most idiotic, insensitive comment to make ever, especially in a time like right now. Like, that's just not the thing to say. That is just not what should be said, man. But this is the mindset. I recently seen a post, and it was of a badge of Runaway Slave Patrol. And, I've seen several different posts in regards to, just this ongoing violent assault on Black folks from man, woman, and child. But this badge just kind of stuck with me because it said that initially the mindset of the officer was to act like the slave catcher. Those seeds are planted early, and especially, I'm going to be honest, in the South. Those seeds are planted. There are small elements of training that I think have been going generational, right? Whether there's little improvised ways, because you notice facilities, hospitals, police departments, organizations only make improvisions towards their training once it becomes an allegation, once it's something that is publicly displayed and they're exposed, and then it's like, okay, we got to clean this up real quick.
Yeah.
That way we're showing that we're making change.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely, right? But it doesn't take away from the fact that the initial training comes from a mindset of slave catchers. Runaway Slave Patrol, a star badge.
That's no, I think even at a deeper, I mean, even to go deeper into the implicitness of the brainwashing of superiority and inferiority was a quote. There was a quote by, I think it was a Newsweek journalist that said, Black Americans have outlived their usefulness. In other words, what he was saying, he was saying once upon a time, blacks really were an economic asset to the United States, and now blacks are just an economic drag on society. In other words, the wood has been hewn, the water's been drawn, the railroad has already now coast to coast, the ditches are dug, the dishes are put away. There's just a few shoes to shine yet for Black Americans.
Yeah, you're making
the value of blacks. That's why we say Black Lives Matter. We have to say that because there is this implicit mindset. It's implicit. It's not overt out there, lynchings and Jim Crow and segregation. And no, it's not very overt. It's very covert. It's attitudinal. Do I want a black surgeon or a white surgeon to operate on me if I had to choose? And so it's really hidden. So when something like this that is very overt happens, that kind of represents the attitudes, the hidden attitudes, the symbolic attitudes, America goes crazy again, right? We go, what in the world? Like that was of the days of the past, you know. It's not, it's still here. And every now and then it pops up and manifests itself outwardly, you know.
So I just want to touch on it briefly. So, wow. When you speak on, and not you, but generally, you know, anyone and everyone, when you speak on our economic value, look at culture, period. American culture is Black culture. Chinese, white, Spanish, every single one of these ethnic groups has taken something away from the Black culture to apply to their own, whether it's through fashion, music, a lifestyle, what you drive, how you speak, what you wear, what your interests are, where you go to party, what you think is hot, everything and anything, how you cut your hair, what type of girl you get, how you, like, whatever, what type of guy, everything is Black culture. So no, Black culture is American culture is Black culture. That is just what it is. Why? Because America was built on the backs of Black people. So that, checkmate.
Truth.
All that other shit is nonsense.
Yeah.
It's nonsense, man. So, you know, I don't want to hear anything from a bigot who was raised by a mammy. I don't want to hear anything from them.
Right.
Don't talk to me if you have generational wealth, because somewhere along the line, someone's grandmother cleaned your floors and wiped your ass so you can be better off.
Yeah. Now you're speaking
So
truth.
it's nonsense. No, that's a fact. And that's not a hidden fact.
No.
That's in your textbook.
No, 250 million acres free given to white Americans, you know.
It's not even
about welfare. Wow.
White folks were the minority. They were the minority. But if you can control a person's mind, then you can control how they're going to live, how they're going to raise their kids. If you reshape religion, if you reshape financial structure, if you reshape education, especially to an oppressed people, no, I mean, no. You can be 5 people if you're able to control 100. That's the question. You know, several years ago, Kanye West said that comment about slavery.
Right.
And a lot of people were like just really up in arms. And, you know, it's insensitive because, you know, a lot of us, especially, you know, generations down the line, we've watched our families struggle. We've watched them break their back working multiple jobs. And we know that the root of all this is from slavery. It's from slavery, this uphill battle that we always find ourselves in as Black folks. Always. Always. But today, and I do agree with him, slavery is of the mind today.
Mm-hmm. It's
of the mind. There's no one stripping me away from anything that I love and that I have obtained. They could try. It doesn't mean they're going to be successful. But if you already feel defeated, and that's the thing, when you keep people broken and down and they're told that they can't do this, they won't do this, and that this is what you're going to eat, and this is how much money we as a government, we're going to give you to live. well, then you're controlling their mind. And that's when we talk about mental slavery and
internalized oppression.
Oh my God.
We believe
we don't even tap into mental
health
when it comes to Black folks.
Right.
We come from a group of people where we didn't believe in mental health for a long period of time.
It was a stigma, right?
We didn't believe in these things because life was taken from us. Life wasn't valued. You're talking about even in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, you still had Black men hanging from trees and their children observing this.
Right.
What do you think the value of life has to a child to watch their father murdered? I had to explain to my son. I had to show him, hey, this is what's happening right now. He's 8.
Yeah.
They kill 8-year-olds too.
Right.
They kill children too. I remember back in the 90s or early 2000s, there were two young men playing with toy guns. Between the ages of 9 and 11, these cops thought they were real 9mm and shot these children. And they got desk jobs. I don't want to go on a rant and go, hey, there's no such thing as a good cop because that's nonsense.
No, that's nonsense. Right? But I'd like to hear more from the fraternity of officers saying, this guy doesn't represent us.
Well, there are guys talking. There are guys speaking out.
Good.
Right now, it doesn't matter, though. Right now, it doesn't matter.
No. So right now, this is the thing that many people do not understand. So let me just. So when and I'm going to generalize because I believe that more than 57% of people do this. And so therefore I generalize as if it were representative of all. But when I talk about white people, I'm saying at least 57% or more of white people, when you ask them about racism, they're going to talk about racism on a very personal, in a very individual way. He was racist to me. I was racist to him. Racism is when we don't treat each other right. When I talk to Black people across the country and we talk about racism, they're talking about something completely different than individual racism. They're talking about systemic racism, systems of oppression. They're talking about institutional racism, all with really good definitions if people would take the time to look them up. And so when we see all this rioting across the country, and I have a polite, person I'm interacting with that goes, oh my, this has nothing to do with Los Angeles. This has nothing to do with Detroit. This has nothing. No, we're talking about the system of criminal justice that's flawed. We're talking about all the gatekeepers in society, whether it's real estate and the redlining that kept Black people out of certain neighborhoods, whether it's the banking and the lending corruption, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's, you can just go around to every institution that makes up our system of society and go, man, this is a racist, inequitable society. And that is what people are really, really fired up about. You know what I mean? And other people are going, well, man, this should just be between Officer Chauvin and, his, no, this is a national, the ambassador to the Congo, his name is Mike Hammer. So even Africa is going off on this, right? And they're influenced more by China. And especially since Donald Trump is our president, they've really aligned themselves with China's influence than with the United States influence. But even ambassadors are going off right now. And Ambassador Hammer said this. He said there was a tweet from a local Congo. He's the ambassador to the Congo. And there was this media entrepreneur that tweeted, and then the ambassador retweeted it and highlighted it. And it said, dear ambassador, your country is shameful. Proud America, which went through everything from segregation to the election of President Obama, still hasn't conquered the demons of racism. How many black people must be killed by white police officers before authorities react seriously? And so the world is paying attention to our proud country that can't begin to recognize the difference between individual racism and systemic racism. Our problem, it's not about how we treat our brother, you know, and who we invite over to eat and all that. It's about our system of injustice that has been a part of our country for centuries and centuries. I mean, I'm telling you, that's what it's about.
I mean, just piggybacking right off of that, talking about systematic racism and, oh, well, it has nothing to do with Detroit or Los Angeles. No. When our president tweets, these thugs and capital thugs are dishonoring the memory of George Floyd, and I won't let it happen, and that he's bringing in the military, or he's willing to bring in the military. And he says, when the looting starts, the shooting starts.
Yeah, that was.
Oh, okay.
And he had just, when Michigan, when they brought in all the guns and everything into the Capitol. Wait a minute, those are good people, he said, right?
He said,
those are good people.
You should give a little and put out the fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, who cares about the pandemic? These are good people. They just want their life back again. These thugs, they just want their life back again. They want to be able to roam the streets without getting shot.
So does the media?
Gas station without getting the cops called on them. They want to be able to go through the park, walk through the park on a nice day without having some white lady
call
the cops on them because they're threatening them. No, they're helping you.
The Amy Cooper story, right?
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's everywhere.
Yeah, she was fired, rightfully so. I do believe that criminal charges should have been pressed. If I was Christian Cooper, I would have easily pressed charges for defamation of character, verbal assault, whatever I could have threw at her, it would have been thrown.
But of course, nothing happened. Fine,
no.
Great. These charges don't happen because she's white.
Hey, do I need to take this inside? Neighbors doing some mowing here.
No, I don't hear it.
I hear the birds, but I don't hear the
yard looks
That's
good.
my birds.
That's your birds.
Those are my birds.
But your birds are talking to my birds. And so, yeah.
My birds do a lot of talking. They do a lot of talking. Like 4 a.m. type talking.
Hey.
I just bought a new bed, man.
You know what the best news out of this whole thing was? Yesterday, Officer Chauvin's wife, who's from Laos, filed for divorce and apologized on behalf of her ex-husband. She was Mrs.
Right now,
Mrs. Minnesota 2018.
No thanks.
Yeah, I'll take it.
No thanks. Here's the thing. You only got out because you got exposed.
Well.
You only got out because you got exposed. She knew she married a racist.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, there's no one that knows you better than your wife or your spouse. There's no one that knows you better. They live with you.
Left, however many years ago, right?
Come on.
That's fair.
You got exposed, and now this affects your public image. No, thank you. They're both racist.
So think about the exposure piece, right? Let's think about that. What would be happening if we did not have the accountability of greater personal media presence, technology, people filming, so you could capture the voice of George Floyd, of Mr. Floyd, I'm body cams. I'm hoping that the accountability continues to increase and helps lead us in a positive direction. I'm not overly hopeful. Same thing happened in '65 in Detroit. Same thing in 1992 with Rodney King in LA. Here we are in 2020 with Officer Chauvin. It's come on.
Yeah, because you know what, right? You know what I really can't stand in a situation like this, where people start throwing statistics. The black on black murder rate is this, and the white on white, well, whites get arrested more, and it's. What does that have to do? Do you think that this man's family, his sister, his brother,
that
they want to see the stats
of
what it looks like for different departments
So
in different states? No one cares.
Black on black crime, 92%. Well, what about white on white crime at 87%? Big deal. It's almost the same. And you represent so much more of the, this is crazy. Yeah.
This is not a white versus black thing, guys. And I think that needs to be stressed. This is not a white versus black thing. I mean, this is not a race war.
I think it's a social justice. I think it's a social justice.
Well, it almost can't be a race war because of how integrated this country is. You would almost have to hate yourself. Well, I'm talking about.
I disagree.
Within the household.
Disagree with that.
Well, you're also married to a white woman, so that means if there is a race war, would you hate your wife? No.
I think it would be like a systematic.
No, you're talking about individual. I'm talking about.
That's what I'm saying. No, So the race war. No, there is a social biasness towards black folks that has been proven. Right? It's been affected through finance, through education, through housing. That is proven. I'm talking about individual race war, right? Like, I am not going to disown my white friends or my Spanish friends because of this incident, right? But I do think that in these moments, right, we have to kind of speak to that because there is, the reason why I don't allow anyone to fight my battles for me because I don't want pity. And I refuse to feel that as a black man, I've been dealt a certain card and I have to subscribe to that treatment. It ain't going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Okay. So, if I am disrespected in front of one of my white peers, you don't have to say a word to this person because I'm going to get in their ass instantly.
Right.
Now, what follows is what you say to me. If you go, well, he didn't really mean it, then we got a problem because now you're speaking to social biasness.
Yeah.
Right? You have to, our counterparts, our peers, our family members, they have to be aware. They have to be able to identify all of these triggers, all of these restrictions, all of this bullshit exclusivity that white folks have. They have to be able to identify with that, speak to it, and blow it up as well.
Yeah.
This cannot be a black fight.
No, but based on the power and privilege in this country that America, that white people have, because America was built on this superiority kind of indoctrination, I think there is a tremendous responsibility to I have to have white allies. I have to have Caucasian. If I get on my soapbox and talk about, injustice and I'm just another black man on my own black little soapbox talking about my own issues. I need to have the people in power.
You don't need a white person's approval.
No, you have to have people that are in power that are speaking to the inequity and injustice.
Because they believe in what you're saying, not because they're backing you for a relationship.
No.
They have to believe the same truth.
But they
can't be, hey, that's my boy.
Right. No. They have to use their privilege and power, though, to speak out against injustice. That their voice. There's a difference between the white people that say, "Oh, I'm a non-racist." Well, a non-racist just means you don't get involved and you don't have any personal ill feelings.
You walk the other way.
An anti-racist says, this is wrong and I'm going to fight this injustice using my privilege and my power. The difference between an anti-racist and a non-racist is very, very important. And I need white people in my life that are anti-racist that are going to speak to this injustice from their position of power and privilege. That's what I have to have it.
It's the right thing to do. Now, I don't have to have it. I don't have to have it because if you don't do it, exactly. There's no use for you at this point.
Right, get out of here. Right.
There's no relationship at this point, right? If you can't identify the truth, and if you can't, again, I'm not asking you to pick up the stick and fight with me. I'm not asking that.
Right.
Because the African-American struggle and the beauty of our hardships and successes is due to our individual resilience.
Right. The strength.
the stories that we've been told of other leaders and legends. Hey, you know, this man went through this woman went through this, they built this from the ground up, and look where they made it. They faced this type of adversity, and then it feels like, you know what?
Standing. Right.
So whether it's individuals or groups, we have great examples of success, of hardship, of rewards, efforts, failure, trial and error, just to get to the top again. We've seen it. I've seen it. It's in my family. It's been in my face all my life. So I don't need no one outside of my race to be accepting of my struggle. Just be aware of it.
Yeah. Well, I'm not asking for sympathy. Right. I can hear that.
Yeah. Just be aware of it, because
don't waste your freaking privilege and power either. You know, don't waste it.
I mean, that's something I've had to kind of sit with. I've been on Facebook a lot more since this tragedy occurred, and you know, the conversations on there. I've had to really hold back some of my thoughts and opinions, and you know, at this point, I just don't have the energy to, like, usually I would want to, you know, share my opinion with someone who has an opinion, and you know, create this dialogue so that there's teaching involved. You know, you learn from others' opinions, but when it comes to people who just don't even try to understand what's going on, like they don't, or they're taking everything personally.
Right.
You know, unfriend. Yeah. I don't have the time for it. I don't have the energy for it, and I don't want you in my life. I'm open for opinions, but at this point, like, if you cannot see how corrupt the system is, if you cannot even take yourself off this high pedestal for just a second to consider what those around you are going through, those who don't look like you, those that don't have privilege, wealth, power, anything. Bye. Nope. Yeah. I just can't. And usually, again, I would, but at this point, I've just unfriended a lot of people. However, I've also gained, I've gained a lot of respect for others. You know, my white friends who are coming out and sharing the post. Okay, what can we do as white people to support what's going on? What can we do? Here's the post, share it, read it. I had a coworker actually text me this morning from like a really rural area. And I remember we were having a conversation a few days ago. And, you know, she gave her opinion on, she like 100% stands with everything. She just wasn't really sure about the looting. Okay. I get a text this morning, a long text, apologizing, saying, you know I said that, and I want to apologize because now I really, like, deep down, I know I was wrong, and I understand, and they're doing it because no one's listening to them. They are unheard. And I mean, I don't know if she got that from just like the thousands of posts I've shared over the past few days, but if she did, great. You know,
well, protesting, rioting is definitely the voice still of the unheard.
It is.
I think that when it does come to looting, we have to be mindful of the communities that we are pouring our dollars into and building. We are then destroyed. So I do think with the looting, I'm not in agreement with that, because now you are, shutting down more jobs. So you are taking more, money away from people to provide for their families moving forward. What does that do to this establishment, whether they're privately owned or, a corporation, So yeah, that's not the best option. It doesn't really do anything. We've seen it with the Rodney King verdict, where, the LA riots, where, look, the community was still rebuilding 10 years after.
Right.
Still, from real estate to banking to, now you have people questioning if they want to put money if they want to, provide loans in those communities. We don't want that. We want to be able to be afforded the opportunity like every other community. So for me, like you, I have friends in PD, I have friends in the city, I have friends in rural communities, and I don't talk much to them about this because, for one, I was born into racism. And if I had to be aware of it at a very early age and understand it, well, it's no business of mine, or no, I don't have to teach anyone about racism. Pay attention to the news.
But for
right?
those who were raised on the other side of racism.
Well, the thing is, like we said earlier, Black culture is American culture. So you can easily accept Black culture on your couch in your private home, in your gated community where it's safe, where you can turn up the rap music and not feel the struggles of the artist. It's very easy to portray what's on the video in your private white school. It's super easy to do that, right? But it's different when you hear the song and it matches the reality.
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't feel the need at that point to educate folks. The knowledge is in it. It's in culture. It's in it.
Yeah.
It's in it. Go to those places. Go to those places that you rap along to. Right? Go to those community centers. Talk to those kids in those public housing tenements.
Yeah.
There's a thought.
Just another thing that I was thinking about. Martin Luther King Jr. and I don't want to make him a cliche like America has done, but right before his death, he was really
assassination.
Before his assassination, he was talking about the war on poverty. Like, he understood that poverty was going to be major. And so I want to go back to looting for just a minute, because I think all people, Black, white, old, young, everybody has the capacity to make good choices,
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's when you're pitted against a couple different realities, it's not as easy to make the right choice in certain situations. If I can make $2,000 a week selling drugs versus McDonald's, if that appears to be my two choices, it's going to be pretty hard to make the right choice. And I'm in a situation where I'm not representing the protest, but I see an opportunity to come in out of my situation of poverty, break a window, grab a TV that I can sell somewhere. That choice becomes a little more challenging than maybe some other choices. If I'm making $40K a year, working in air conditioning, and have a 401k, it's pretty easy to make the right choice. And these are the folks that go, these looters, my, this is a terrible thing. But their choices are very different between right and wrong. I mean, they're not faced with the same temptations of choice that I think some folks are. And so I think it's wrong. I think it's bad. I don't think it's very helpful. But at the same time, I think it is, as you said, the voice of the unheard, the voice of the poor in many cases, the voice of those who have given up on any societal help, and they're going to go and get theirs while they can get it if there's an opportunity. And they may not even be representative of the protest and the protesters in general. I'm not sure we know that that's all quite connected.
I would like to touch on that piece about the selling drugs and the choices with McDonald's. And I first want to start by commending all the young men and women who are in poverty-stricken communities, who keep a solid 9-to-5, get their education, take care of their families,
make the right
challenge themselves and do the uprise and make a better life for generations to come in regards to their family. Secondly, I want to also note that selling drugs is a choice. And the reason why the choice is taken is because the risk, whether that's penitentiary or death, is almost no different than low income, restricted housing, terrible living conditions,
3 hots in a cot.
you know, no good health care. So the fact is that, yeah, selling drugs is a choice, but the choice is only made because the risk is almost parallel to the one that we're living in.
There it is.
So, you know, it's like, hey, I can either do 25, I can make 25, or I can not make it to 25.
Oh, well said. Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So, and I don't know how much that's going to change, only because that narrative is still being pushed through music and film. And as long as, you know, our artists, whether that's, you know, through the hip hop culture or, you know, through independent film and you know, because there's a double-edged sword. On one, we have to speak the truths of where we're living and how we're living, but we also have to define those truths as these are our struggles and this is how we're getting out of it. I think sometimes the narrative gets shaped to where these are our struggles and this is how we're subscribing to it. And that's not what you want to push on to the kids, because there's young guys out there taking note and they're already feeling defeated before even feeling challenged. You know, they're just succumbing to defeat.
Yeah.
Because they're looking at uncles, moms, dads, grandparents, who are just not, you know, who they watch get defeated, man. You know, they watch lose jobs, fall victim to drug addiction, murder, jail, all of these things, man. All of these things. So,
no, I agree wholeheartedly that, yeah, people will make better choices when better choices are made available to them, you know? And I'm not saying for them, I'm just saying presented, you know, given an opportunity. I just firmly believe that. But man, it's so loaded right now, and you know, 4 nights of protests. I do respect the governor. I'm not the governor, the mayor of Minneapolis.
Do you respect it, or was that just what had to happen?
No, so even.
How do you not say something? Like, no, you gotta say something.
No, because look at all the other times when these folks have gone on and said, well, we'll let justice.
But these are not those times, because look at it. Within 3 days, precincts, communities have been burnt, destroyed.
But look at look when we had Trayvon. Look when we had Michael Brown.
I get it. I get it.
You know, Tyrone, you know,
I get it.
Come out and go, well, let's let justice take its course. And then, you know, a year and a half later, finally there's a charge, and then they're let off. And then, you know, this guy said, myself, if we did this, we'd be in jail. I'm calling for him to be in jail. Why is he not in jail right now?
No,
and
for sure.
He did not have to say that. He did not.
He did not?
No.
No, sir. Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
He could have said, let justice take
its course. No, because so here's the thing. You cannot say let justice be what it's going to be when you've quarantined people, when you've taken jobs, when you've taken health care, when you've restricted them from even going outside. So now, on top of this, you already have a pandemic existing? No, you got to say something, because you might not have a city after this.
Well, yeah, but that's what they said.
No, and this time, in
Detroit in 65, they said the same thing.
We're not in 65, sir. We're in 2020.
We're in 92 with but
we're not. No, that's why a white mayor speaking on the death and the execution of a black man is not respected. It's necessary.
But
it's necessary.
Sometimes when it's necessary, it does not happen.
I'm not going to compare to the past.
Okay,
I'm not going to compare to the past.
3
Okay,
weeks
but
ago?
when we're
You're
talking
comparing to
about
3 weeks ago? I mean, I know this is like,
Right.
you really see it, but still, it's bad. You know,
Okay, but when we're talking about necessary,
yeah.
Luke, when we're talking about, politicians, like it being necessary for them.
It's also election year, by the way. So, sorry.
That's fair. That's
okay.
fair.
Come on now. Let's talk truth.
Right. Okay. But it wasn't necessary for him to say what he said.
Right.
He could have said what Trump said.
Exactly.
He could have.
President.
He would have been reelected.
But I think that's the difference. Yes, he had to say something. I mean, his city is being burned. But he could have said something along the lines of, this needs to stop. You are ruining the city. You are doing all these things, like making it again, like taking the focus away from
what
the
really
point,
happened.
like what happened and why the city is being destroyed.
Let me tell you why it's necessary, guys. Who elects these officials in? Especially a mayor. The people. It is when you are an elected official of the people, it is necessary for you to speak and be the voice of the people. It should not be a value of respect or disrespect. You stand in a position where you have to. You are obligated to.
Who elects the president? The people.
The people in Congress.
The people elect the president.
We already know that those electoral votes are not 100% exact.
Well, that's
We're
true.
talking about city officials, so a mayor.
But what I'm saying,
it's not like a president.
Our president can say this crazy stuff, and there is a very high likelihood he's going to be reelected.
Right, Luke, but he's also sponsored by other billionaires. We're talking about the city of Minnesota and their mayor.
Do you think though, like, obviously there are people in Minneapolis that do stand behind what happened with like what the police did,
Oh, for sure.
So either way, whatever you say, you're going to divide the people, and you're still going to get votes.
And what I'm saying is, almost any time I've watched this kind of stuff, and I know these are unprecedented times with the pandemic, but I'm not going to say that, the reason they didn't do it was because of the pandemic. No. What the fraternity of police is government, and they lay in bed with the district attorney. They lay in bed with the judges. They lay in bed with the city government officials. They are all a fraternity.
Can I ask you a question?
And he stood up against them and said, this guy needs to go to jail. Why is he not?
He didn't go up against anyone. I mean, so let me ask you a question. Which vote to you matters more, the rich and wealthy or the oppressed and desperate?
I guess it depends on who you're asking.
No, if
I'm asking you guys, and we're in individual cities, which vote, if you were electing
the rich
mayor, the rich? Okay.
Because the poor don't vote. I mean, they don't as much. I'm telling you, they don't as much. You say, man,
but they're targeted, though. Aren't they targeted?
The poverty vote. If I could only get this segment of the vote, they try to get them. You know what I mean?
They get them, Luke. You're talking about people who have campaigns in poverty-stricken communities, and they get the poor to rally around them because they become this fake savior.
Yeah, but
we're going to change. All these false promises. That's been wiped and spread through the black community since the end of slavery.
Sure.
White government officials coming into impoverished black communities, selling a dream. Exactly my point. So the fact that the oppressed and the oppressed and the desperate, their vote matters more when it comes to George Floyd. And for this mayor, he has to speak to those people.
Yeah. No, but I would say,
because it's been witnessed. It's an execution, guys.
I don't want to take away the fact that I do think I do think that he was moved by this. He's
a human being. He better be, man.
Yeah, he's a young human being that hasn't been, inundated with the callous.
I'm just not going to applaud him and respect him for making a comment. Because quite honestly, I've witnessed more black murders in a little bit. His little bitty apologetic comment didn't mean anything to me.
Well, it
didn't mean anything to
me. New
me.
To this office. And so,
it doesn't matter. I'm not new to being black. You're not new to being black.
But he's doing something different than historical mayors have done in that city with tons of race.
Okay, kudos to him. He chose to be the mayor.
Right.
He chose to be a mayor. And that comes with standards and expectations.
And power, which I appreciate.
I'm not respecting that. I'm not respecting it.
But
I'm
again,
not respecting it.
I mean, those are two opinions, you know, and like, that's what we're here for.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Other people are going to have similar, different opinions, and it's good for them to hear.
Yeah. When you see black bodies hanging, when you see black kids murdered, when you see black mothers on the floor crying, rolling around because of the death and the murder of their children, at that point, and when it's continuous, when it's generational, no, I don't respect any government official for taking a stance and speaking on the people who vote them in. I'm not doing that.
But who?
I'm not. I get what you're saying, LH, but I'm not doing it. If we're going to
have reconciliation, who has the power?
The people. The power's in the people.
So that's why it's changed since slavery? Like, since the people have had power in segregation, the people have power in Jim and Jane Crow, the people have power during the 92 riots, the people
Is it not the people that pushed but is it not the people that pushed the rich in the
power?
The people. So that's where we sit down.
We need the
because
power.
I believe in the people. I believe in the people. I'm the example of the power of the people.
No, if the power of the people worked, we wouldn't have this today happening right now.
So do you think
more people like this mayor that's going to say this guy needs to be in jail, and I'm putting political pressure to make sure it happens? That's what we need.
We need more apologetic white government officials.
Not apologetic. He wasn't apologetic.
He did apologize.
No, he's calling for action. That's what we need. Anti-racist.
Shouldn't he?
Shouldn't he? Doesn't matter. Historically, that has not happened. Please.
I mean, shouldn't our president of the United States be calling for that stuff?
Well, this guy.
I mean, granted, it's Trump.
I'm just dividing the president versus a mayor of Minnesota. I'm gonna draw a huge divide there.
No.
And I'm gonna say.
So moving forward, then how do you move toward reconciliation of these type of issues? We can talk about the problems all day long, but I'm telling you, if we do not have people in high levels authentically working toward dismantling our criminal justice system, we're in trouble, because the people aren't going to get it done unless they continue to burn up our nation.
So let me ask you a question. I just want to put this out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's teachers, there's doctors, there's officers, there's city councilmen, there's mayors, there's local business owners, there's
people represent
educators.
Men represent 5%.
Hold on, let me finish.
Underrepresented.
Those individuals who have came from their community, gave back to their community. Sir, those are examples of power of the people.
They represent less than 5%.
Okay, but it's still something.
Not enough. Still something for change.
It's not enough today, but watch that 5 turn to 50. And if you think like that, then that's where it shifts.
The system doesn't change.
Well, whose responsibility is it to educate you? But you.
Well, I tell you,
power of the people. If don't you have access to a library? Don't you have access to information? Right. So why is it that we are relying on government, education, banks to give us this overall just comfort of we're good, nah, man, I'm just not subscribing to that shit, dude. I'm not, man.
Does not work. Capitalism does not work. This is, as Cornel West said yesterday, this is a failed social experiment, this idea of capitalism, because it's not equitable and never has been. And you can't all of a sudden go, hey, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. You can't, this doesn't work like that. I might have all the right decisions. I mean, all I might walk to the library. I might go and self-educate, but I can't get a loan from a bank. They don't trust my credit. They don't trust my history. I can't get someone to co-sign out of my neighborhood that's viable. No, there are systems in place that do keep that symbolically. It's the knee on the neck. It's the under the foot of oppression in our society.
Okay. Let me ask you. So, in your 30 years of education, have you ever told any of your teachers or your students this one philosophy? Each one teach one. Have you ever used that? I know you have.
Sure.
I know you've used that.
Sure.
How would you define each one teach one?
But even if each one teaches one.
No, just define one. Just define what that means to you.
Each one teach one. I'm going to try to help somebody find a path and follow a path to success.
Okay, so would you say that by saying that would be either a hypocritical statement to push to the minds of young students and young educators if we're saying that? But we're saying that because we do believe in that, right? You said it. Yeah. And knowing you with your credentials.
Tax-based. It's a
I understand what you're saying. I'm talking about the message.
How can I ask these two people to compete?
I'm talking about the message that you're giving to youth.
Message doesn't matter if you don't have resources. You have to have access to resources. You can say it because you've had access to resources. I can say it because I
fought to have access to resources. It wasn't given to me. I fought to have them. I'm still fighting to have them.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're all, the three of us are still fighting right now to have the appropriate resources to have sustainable lifestyles.
That's right. That's right.
So no, nothing, us as Black folks, the three of us, nothing was given at all. So I do believe that the struggle of Black folks, we have been embodied with the each one teach one. What I know, you will know more.
Yeah, no. And I do believe in that. And
I'm only so passionate about it because I come from that.
Right.
So I just don't know any other way of living.
Yeah.
I don't know any other way of thinking. I don't bank on resources available. I go try to find them if I can. I keep knocking. I treat my life like a sales rep. I'm at every door looking for every new opportunity.
Right. But that is not it's not the mindset of just most Americans in general.
Well, I got 2 kids, and they're going to put 3 more or 4 or 5 more kids out into the world, and we're going to do it each one teach one. And trust me, my seedlings will have more, and then we're going to just develop this mindset. So that's the way we got to start shifting our focus.
No, people who do have access, we have a grave responsibility. You know, I have worked really hard, and I'm continuing to help people get through school, to help people get advancement in career.
Forget those people. Your 3 daughters are going to have kids who will be great minds, and they're going to have great minds because you're planting the seed of development.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. So when you talk about the people, and I'm saying, so in every household, if we treated our kids, our families, with, you know, as just canvases of knowledge and just hit them with everything that we know and introduce them to all of life's ills, but also all the fruits of our labor.
Right.
You're providing universal balance of how to live your life, right? So
until I get pulled up and reach for my wallet, they shoot me dead.
No, okay, but you can't. But you know what, man? When that time comes, so be it. When you are Black and in America, every day counts. Every single day counts, man. Like, there is not a time where you can say to yourself, I'm going to do it tomorrow.
Yeah. You can't.
You live with this ongoing pressure. You got to get it done now.
Yeah.
So,
well said. That is.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And I know, like, as we begin to raise more kids and, you know, as each one teaches one, our only hope is to, you know, hopefully change the systematic oppression and division and racism. But what do we do now? You know, I'm hoping not to have kids for a while, you know.
So right now, you give back to your community.
And so, like,
true.
I can
you inject yourself into the change.
But then what is it? But when you have that, so I can take this all the way to neuroscience, but I'll keep it pretty simple of, you know, you're raised, for those who are raised to think very differently than we do.
Culture matters.
You know, how much time and patience and energy do you have to try to recreate what they've already learned, how to reteach them? Why is that now our job as Black people? Like, why do we shouldn't have to sit around and explain why life is so difficult, why we have to live every single day in fear of losing someone, our own safety.
Mm-hmm.
Why, like, that's where it comes from, of like, that's why there are riots.
No, very
Patience
true.
is gone. No one is listening. I mean, some people are. Again, this is very generally speaking. But overall, these systems are not changing. And so how long and how much time and energy needs to be put forth for there to be a difference? You know, we're changing the route of how information is being displayed. You know, it's showing that everyone is tired of this.
Well, you know, for a long time, us as Black folks, we have been tolerant to racism and patient with ignorance, right? So where we are explaining our culture to, you know, other ethnic groups as they try to learn us, but not go through our struggles, right?
Right.
It's
and
easy
I mean,
to wear the clothes, but not wear the bruises. You know, let me say that again. It is very easy to wear the clothes, but not wear the bruises. So I think, you know, we have developed, and I think it's something that we're embedded with very young, this tolerance of ignorance towards our race. And again, I don't want to make this, and I refuse to make this a Black versus white thing, or Black versus Spanish, or a Black versus anything. That is not what this is. This is about awareness. This is about consistency and change. And this is about developmental change, because we have to understand that to change the way we live, we have to start with our youth. You have to start with kids. You have to start with what they eat, what they drink, what they see, how they talk, what they learn, what they pick up. These developmental, Doc, come on, you understand that?
I do.
You know, when you plant those seeds of what it means to be a stand-up individual, a stand-up guy, you know, I think a lot of us as Black fathers, we put the Black plight on our children. And I want to say thank you to my dad and my stepdad and my uncles and my grandfathers for never doing that to me.
Yeah.
Never limiting me on what I could be.
No, you're, and one of the things, as much as you and I argue and disagree, which I think
we're not arguing.
No, I think it's important. You have to have some discourse. I mean, this is how you experience cognitive dissonance. You know, you get the cementation. You know, you have these cemented values and ideas and beliefs and norms, and we will die to defend them. But we have to have somebody shake that every now and then and give us another way of thinking. And I think you do that as well as anybody. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's our conversation is important. But I listen to this quote that I got, and this goes to your point. There are times when we have to. Let me just say this. I agree with what you're saying about, man, each one teach one, and especially with those that are close to you.
Because you're doing that. You're doing that. That's why I know you believe it.
No, that's, you have to. You know what I mean? And there's a time when it's important for us to speak and to shout from the mountaintop. But this was a quote that I got from a colleague today that said, "Be silent. Those who know don't need to be told. And those who don't know seldom listen." And sometimes that's just the way it is. We've just got to, you know, we're preaching to the choir often with our shouting. Now, it doesn't mean we don't speak out, because you have to speak out for justice. But I do think that it's interesting that those who know don't need to be told, but those who don't seldom listen. Man, that happens a lot. And I'm guilty of that as well at times, you know.
Well, you know, I don't, you know, I don't go around preaching the word. You know, I'm not that guy. You know, I don't give several paragraphs on social media expressing my struggles. And shout out to all those who do, fill those gaps and give people empowerment through social media. But if there's anything that I do, I make sure that when I am dealing with children, that there is a clear understanding of the world that we live in, because I believe all children are born innocent and non-hateful, non-violent angels.
Right? Yeah.
All babies are born as angels. We push our narrative, our life's ills, our beliefs, our culture onto new life. And then when we sit back and say, damn, my kid is bad, or he talks like this, well, look at the painter, look at the artist.
I think about this, because how old is your little one now?
3 weeks and 8.
Right, 3 weeks. So picture your little one with a computer keyboard on the outside, attached to the outside of its body. Mm-hmm. And every interaction that little one has with someone in society now gets to type a message into his being on that keyboard. And I'm thinking about what messages are sent from this day on, to this child, from you, from people who come into your space. Once the child goes off to school, teachers and peers and the socialization, the bullies, the friends, what messages are being typed in? And I think we have a grave responsibility, like you said, to our youth, to really work with that information that child is receiving to help shape that identity.
Well, I say that to say this, that with my kids, my boys, my goal is to teach freedom, equality for all men,
right,
all women, also, any financial bracket, but on the opposing side, there's definitely another individual who takes pride in teaching their child their hateful ways, because they believe in it. They believe in it, and they teach these children how to be hateful, who to look out for, and they want to continue to hate. So we have to understand that, there's a lot of us who are fighting to make our kids well-rounded, but there's also a large percent of us as well who are really focused on pushing the hate forward. And they're just like us, they are well aware that it has to be done through the youth.
Yeah.
It has to, you look at something like, the U.S. military, where you have the RTC, and the only reason why the RTC exists is that, or the Boy Scouts, is that you can give children, young men and women, early on these values early, so that way, by the time they're 17 or 18 and they enlist, they're almost programmed to fall in formation. They know how to salute, because they know development is everything. It's everything. So I'm not preaching to grown folks, black or white. I'm always going to inject myself into the community and holler at the kids, because it's the kids who are going to make me be able to sleep at night and not have my house broken into, or, my son assaulted, or, have my son assault one of them. It's all about how we live and what we say to these kids.
No, so even the civil rights, when I think about the youth movement there, the Freedom Riders, these were youth that took the torch and the mantle in many ways. Yeah.
So back to this mayor.
He's young.
Right? Well, he's young.
He's 30. I think he's 30.
Though his voters and his supporters are all, black and white folks, maybe over 30, mid-20s, there are groups of 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old kids with social media accounts who live in the city of Minnesota, who are watching their mayor make a necessary statement, because 8 years from now, those 12-year-olds become 20, and they're the new voters.
Yep.
And they're the new interns, and they're the ones moving forward to be in city council and government, and they're the new doctors, they're the new officers. So it's important to put that message out. When he's speaking to us, it's only respected, and I agree with you in this regard because of what we've seen prior, that we've yet to see someone be out so forthcoming and apologetic to the murder of a black man. But I'm also saying it's very necessary that he had to say that, because it's not just us watching.
Yeah.
It's these young people who just got their workers permit, who might have just started a job at the CVS at 16 years old, 18 years old, you know, and these Targets and these McDonald's and these, you know, he needs to be talking to those people. We should always be talking to the young people. Always. It's really hard to shape an old mind.
That is truth.
Exactly.
Right? It's really hard to shape an old mind.
Yes.
So
my gutters look terrible.
So do you think these riots and protests then are not helpful if they're kind of aimed? I mean, I know they're being, like, you know, young folk are seeing it, but like, isn't it targeted to change older minds?
Well, so,
because
you know,
the older minds are those in power.
These times right now, and though I didn't exist or was even thought about during that time, when I look at footage of the 60s and Vietnam War and in the 70s and the Black Panther Party and all these different social groups in that 10, 15-year period, and what it did for the youth. You had, you know, young guys who were getting into the Army, but then also hitting Woodstock that summer. And it was like this just weird paradox of, where do I fit in socially?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So everything was now banked on freedom and equality and choice, and having the right to have choice. So when I think about the protest, I think that whenever something reaches a head, how it starts to filter out, you really can't control it, because, you know, we can always control what we do, but we can never control the response.
Right.
You know, I tell my son all the time, if you hit somebody in the face and they decide to shoot you.
Yeah. If you confront, you can't predict what the response is going to be.
Right. So, you know, with the constant violence and the murder of, you know, young Black men and women, I think how this filters out, you can't cap this.
Yeah.
You can't try to, you know, adjust it to where it's more appropriate for your community. How it lashes out will be how it lashes out. What we have to do, like we just said, we have to inject ourselves in the community and try to find alternatives. And you know, some might say, I don't know if there's anyone. It got to be violence. No, it doesn't got to be violence, man. It doesn't, because at that point, you are now putting yourself in a probable cause of being removed from your family for the rest of your life, or having your family removed from you.
Yeah.
And I fight too hard for mine to even gamble that. Yeah. I refuse to. So
this is, so one of the things, and I know we've got to probably start wrapping this up.
Yeah.
And I really do appreciate the views. I mean, this is the kind of conversation America has to have, you know. One of the issues, one of the reasons that we're not getting very far in race relationships is because when you have one group of people, the Black American, who has been so brainwashed by way of inferiority that there's this internalized oppression, trying to talk with people who are white and suffer from extreme white guilt of the atrocities of history, we can't even have the conversation very well, right? When you have kind of this, those internally oppressed and those with white guilt, it's tough to have conversation. I think churches, really, if you're gonna, you know, the Christian church in America is almost dead. Maybe not in the Black community, but just overall nationally.
And maybe not on television every Sunday.
It's following
400 million watchers.
Right. And so, but the church, we need to be using the church facilities and church leaders, if you ask me, to really organize. You want to organize? This is where you bring people together who can talk to each other and be taught how to listen to each other. I think if you're going to get anywhere, and I do think I'm coming back around, Leon, you're probably
Alex, can I catch you on this?
Movement needs to come from the bottom up as well, and it happens in the local church.
Can I catch you on this, just with the local churches and, you know, whether white or black churches? What happens when, you know, those church leaders are molesting our children, you know, taking our money, you know, banking on the poor? And I'm not saying this is every church leader. I'm saying that there is a percentage of church leaders, ministers, preachers. So, but what happens when that trust is broken?
Yeah, but
that's why I stopped going.
But it's the same thing, though.
What happens when that trust is broken, man?
Well, and I'm not talking about membership. I'm just talking about using it as a community entity.
But then you got to bank on membership, because people need to feel a part of something.
Well, that's
and
true.
What does the church promote? The church promotes organization before anything. And
as Dr. King said, the church is the most segregated place in America at 10 o'clock every Sunday, you know. But I don't want to cast all churches just like.
And I'm not doing that.
All police officers are Calvin. Not all churches are, you know.
Not at all. Not at all. Respect all the good respect all the good preachers and cops. And I'm not doing that. I'm just talking about when we are trying to get in contact with the depressed and oppressed.
Yeah.
How do we reach them when all avenues that have been taken are now exhausted?
Yeah.
When all opportunities for trust have been broken?
That's a very good point. Now,
when all bridges have been shut down.
So then let me bring you to another point, and this is for another podcast, but we have militarized our law enforcement, which is different than almost every country in the world. I was in China, 27 million people, in Beijing, and not one police officer carries a gun, right? Now, they're not a democracy. They are under communist rule. And so everybody's like basically
very strict laws,
right? Very strict law, so I don't want to compare apples and oranges, but when we have made the police some type of a military occupation, it's not like they're constables patrolling the street like they used to be. This is military occupation. I think that's a discussion to be had at some point in this wild west that we live in called America. We really have gone down a road with the militarization of law enforcement that I think is kind of the roosters coming home, to roost.
Well, I mean, to be quite frank, I think a lot of our historic superiority, there is a complex of, there's a God complex, right? There's a,
we control. Right.
Well, the thing is, when those people do screw up and they make mistakes, what's the first thing you hear out their mouths? Well, I'm just human.
Right.
We all make mistakes.
Right.
We all make mistakes, right? But you say that in fault and shame. Yeah. But when it's time to give out laws and give out restriction and give out rules, you do it in a God-like manner. And you can't pretend to be God on one end and then be treated like human and humanized and flawed. You cannot do that.
What? No, that's so well said.
Can't do that.
No. And so that is the juxtaposition in which we find ourselves. It really is.
Right, because as taxpayers, we're looking at the officers, in respect to all my boys.
Yeah,
but
greater accountability, right?
But here's the thing. When you go out drinking at night and then all of y'all drive back home drunk, and then you go back to work the next night and pull over people that are driving drunk, give them tickets, what are you saying?
Yeah.
That you will be God until caught and treated like a human.
Yeah, yeah. Then you say, well, human nature. It's only human nature.
We all make mistakes. My bad. No, listen, even in my most greatest moments, I try to wear them humbly.
Yeah.
Because they come with privilege, they come with great timing, they come with a lot of hard work and a lot of almost strategic execution, man. So I take pride in those moments. They do not alter me into a godlike mind. Now, I will say, when I am being creative and I am trying to get myself somewhere, I do like to believe and being superior to that, right? Beating that challenge,
Yeah.
overcoming those fears and that obstacle. But, you know, it's like what we do with children. I'm no better than these kids.
No.
We're not hired. We're not there to you know, channel off as that. No, we're not that. It's to show. I think that, you know, law enforcement, respectfully, the hypocrisy of protect and serve, and it has been just washed and shamed, because for every cop that is literally trying to protect and serve, there's an officer murderer like we've seen in Minnesota, right? There's the cops who shot Amadou Diallo 41 times for reaching for his wallet. There's the cops who killed Sean Bell. There's, you know, the officers who killed, you know, Staten Island. What's his name? I'm drawing a blank, and I'm so sorry. Staten Island guy. I can't breathe.
Right.
Eric Gardner. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Really sorry for that. Right. Freddie Gray. You know, where's the prosecutors, like the Centoya Brown story, or, you know, stuff like, so to me, man, I feel that we're going to have to start taking control of those jobs within our city. We need more Black cops from the community. We need more Black mailmen. We need more Black dentists, right? And it's only so that way our youth are able to see other, you know, other displays of success and hard work from the ground up.
Yeah.
It's really hard to relate to another Black man whose family is wealthy and, you know, and has it really kind of cut out for him to be successful. Yes, we might go through the same plights, but how we got there very different.
Right.
How we got there different. So we got to get over that hump even internally.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that's really interesting, I just had this thought that, and again, so I speak very humbly, but I think police in some way, maybe even metaphorically or analogously, that they're being judged by a few bad apples, so to speak, just like many whites have looked at the Black community, and for every time there's you know, the news catches that one Black guy, you know, robbing, or, you know, every night on the 6 o'clock there's some Black guy that's doing something, and the whole group is being judged by bad apples, bad choices, bad decisions, and it's almost like ironic that police are being judged by the nation in many ways right now by bad apples.
So it's up to your internal affairs. It's up to your captains, your lieutenants, that when these bad apples get out the academy and they join your department, that you make sure that the level of training is so extensive, that there's psychological training, that there's intensive background checks. That way we can catch these at the root. We're not sitting here playing a guessing game 17 years in.
No. And there's you're addressing a staffing issue, a national crisis, a staffing issue, you know, police. I can remember in our own community saying, oh man, if you knew how few officers we have or how many doubles I'm having to work, I hear police officers saying. So I wonder, in the hiring, are we just taking, sometimes out of desperation, folks that have no business being in law enforcement, you know?
Well, absolutely, because every job is, right? For every bad cop, there's a shitty teacher sleeping with their kid.
Right.
There's a doctor doing blotch jobs on his patients.
Mental health
daycare. There's daycare workers beating infants. There's mental health workers taking advantage of intellectually disabled men and women and children. Right. So there's bad apples and seeds all around us. Right. There's two things that we have to recognize: what's actually bad, quote unquote, versus what's policy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And second, the accountability piece with each other. If you stand by and watch a crime, you are no different than that guy.
You might as well be doing it.
You're no different.
That's it.
Folks, this has been real.
Hey, listen, a bit
I figured it would be.
a bit of levity. I love watching your behaviors. I like when you pop your glasses, you pop them up. You know, I think that's boom.
You get me going. You grind my gears, man. You grind my gears.
Then, hey, listen, and then when you get mad and you drink your water, you drink it so aggressively, like you look like Napoleon Dynamite.
No, I'm only drinking it. Look what's left. That's
no, you were hitting it so hard. I'm like, what?
Well, it's hot. I got beads of sweat on my head.
I'm observing you. Yeah.
Staring at my gutters. You know, it's a lot of thoughts going on right now. You know. Power wash coming soon. You know,
Sophie, man, you look like who was the on Prince?
I'm getting Janet Jackson vibes.
Can y'all just leave me alone? My hair is going wild.
Who's Prince's girl? Sheila E. or something like that. Sheila E.
Oh,
you look like Sheila E. Man.
I just don't know.
Purple rain. Purple rain. I love it. Oh man, that's good stuff.
All right,
love all of you. So much.
Love you guys. Y'all
all right,
love
you guys.
All right. I'll holler at you later.
All right.
Peace.
See ya.